You know that feeling when you're staring at your bank account and you're doing the mental math and you realize that if you move that 20 bucks from checking to savings, you'll finally, technically have $1,000 set aside. It's a weird mix of pride and immediate anxiety, right? Because as soon as you see that number, your brain immediately starts listing all the things that could go wrong to make that number disappear. The car that's making that weird noise again, the fact that your laptop is 5 years old and has the battery life of a potato. It's this strange emotional state where you feel both ahead and incredibly vulnerable at the exact same time. And I remember that feeling so vividly because it took me forever to get past it. Honestly, getting that first little pile of money together felt like trying to fill a bathtub with a teaspoon while the drain is wide open. It was exhausting. And then something strange happened. Once that tub had a few inches of water in it, it started filling up faster, almost on its own. My name is Alex, and I've spent way too much time thinking about that weird phenomenon. Why does the first 5 grand feel like climbing Everest in flip-flops, but the journey from 5 to 50,000 feels, I don't know, less steep? It's a question that bugged me for years, and honestly, the answer isn't really about the money at all. It's about us. It's about the psychology of the climb. So today, I want to sit down and really unpack that, why your first $5,000 feels impossible, and why, if you can just get over that hump, the next $50,000, while still work, somehow feels more inevitable. Let's get into it. To understand why that first $5,000 is so uniquely hard, you have to understand the environment you're operating in. It's not just about being broke, it's about being fragile. When you have virtually no savings, your financial life is essentially a high-wire act without a net. Every single decision is loaded. Let's say you're trying to save your first $1,000. You pack your lunch for a week, you skip a couple of fancy coffees, and by Friday you've managed to squirrel away, I don't know, 40 bucks. You feel good, you feel responsible, you're making progress. And then on Saturday morning you wake up and your phone won't turn on. It's just a black screen of death. And suddenly that 40 bucks you saved is gone. It's not even a question. You don't have a phone replacement fund, you just have a please let nothing go wrong fund, and something went wrong, so you're back to zero. Or worse, if you had to put it on a credit card, you're actually negative. This is the leaky drain I mentioned. When you have no buffer, life's little emergencies, a parking ticket, a cavity, a blown tire, aren't inconveniences, they are financial reset buttons. And it's not just the big stuff, it's the constant low-grade friction of being undercapitalized. You can't buy toilet paper in bulk at the big box store because the upfront cost is $30 and you only have $20 until payday, so you buy the smaller, more expensive pack at the corner store. You can't pay your car insurance for 6 months to get the discount because you don't have the $600 right now. You're literally paying a being poor tax on almost everything you do. And this is the part that nobody talks about in the shiny, motivational finance posts. It's not just about discipline. You can have the discipline of a Zen master, but if your financial life is a house of cards, any random gust of wind is going to knock it down. The goal isn't just to save money. The goal is to build a house that isn't made of cards. And that first $5,000, that's the down payment on the lumber. The emotional toll of this is huge. You start to internalize it. You think, why can't I get ahead? What's wrong with me? You see these people online talking about their savings rate and their investment portfolios, and you're just trying to make it to next Thursday without your checking account dipping below zero. It feels like a personal failing, when in reality, you're just playing a game where the difficulty setting is on hard mode. Every dollar you try to save has to fight its way past a dozen legitimate, urgent needs. $1 for a rich person, that dollar just goes and sits quietly in a mutual fund, maybe making friends with other dollars. $1 for someone trying to save their first 5 grand, that dollar is a frontline soldier in a war against entropy. It's constantly being called upon to fix a leaky faucet or replace a worn-out pair of shoes. It's exhausting. But here's the thing. That feeling, that grind, that constant pushback, it doesn't last forever. There's an invisible threshold you cross, and for a lot of people, that threshold is somewhere right around that $5,000 mark. It's not a magic number, obviously. For some people, it might be 3 grand. For others, it might be 10. But the concept is the same. It's the point where your savings stop being a fragile shield and start becoming a small but functional tool. Think of it like pushing a broken-down car. At first, you're putting all your strength into it, feet slipping on the pavement, muscles screaming, and the damn thing barely moves an inch. That's your first $1,000. But then you get it rolling, just a little bit. You're still pushing, still working hard, but it's not quite as impossible. That's your first $5,000. And then, once it's rolling at a decent clip, you can jump in and pop the clutch. The engine catches. Now you're not pushing anymore. You're steering. That's what it feels like when you get to $50,000. The reason for this shift is both mathematical and psychological. Mathematically, your money starts to work for you. It's not just about compound interest yet. At 5 grand, the interest is still pocket change. It's about what that money allows you to do. Remember the leaky drain? With $5,000 in the bank, the drain starts to get a little less leaky. Your phone dies? Annoying, but not a crisis. You just buy a new one. You don't have to reset your savings. You have a $400 car repair? It's a bummer, a line item in your budget you'll have to account for next month, but it doesn't wipe you out. The buffer is working. This financial stability then creates more stability. Because you're not constantly putting out fires, you have the mental bandwidth to actually optimize. You can finally afford to buy the toilet paper in bulk. You can take the 30 seconds to submit the receipt for that minor medical expense to your FSA because you're not in a frantic rush to just pay the bill. You can start to think ahead. Hey, my car insurance is due in 6 months. I can put $50 a month into a separate savings bucket so it's not a shock. You're no longer reacting to life. You're starting to plan for it. And that shift in mindset is more valuable than the money itself. The $5,000 isn't just cash. It's a purchase of your own cognitive freedom. It buys you the mental space to stop being a firefighter and start being an architect. I want to talk about the nature of the dollars themselves. Not all dollars are created equal. The dollars you save at the beginning are the most expensive dollars you will ever save. They are steeped in sacrifice. They represent the Saturday nights you stayed in, the used textbooks you sold back, the cheaper brand of peanut butter you bought. They are no dollars. No, you can't go out. No, you can't get the good headphones. No, you can't. These dollars have a high emotional cost. Every single one of them is a small victory in a battle against your own present tense desires. And because they cost you so much, you guard them jealously. You become almost miserly. I remember checking my savings account balance every single day, multiple times a day, just to make sure the number was still there. I was so afraid of losing those hard-won dollars that I almost forgot what I was saving them for. But the dollars you save when you're going from $45,000 to $50,000, those are different. Those are yes dollars. They come from a place of abundance, not scarcity. By that point, your life probably looks a little different. Maybe you got a few raises. Maybe your career is on a better track. Your baseline lifestyle has adjusted upward, but your savings rate might have stayed the same or even gone up. These dollars don't feel like a sacrifice. They feel like the natural, almost effortless byproduct of a well-oiled financial machine. You have a good job, you have a budget that works, you have a system where money flows automatically into your investment accounts on payday. You don't even miss it. It's like magic, but it's not magic. It's just the accumulated power of having your shit together. Think of it like building a fire. The first $5,000 is the kindling. It's the tiny twigs and dry leaves you have to spend 20 minutes searching for. You have to hover over them, carefully arranging them, striking match after match and gently blowing on the smallest ember, praying it catches. It's fragile. One gust of wind, one little spark going out, and you're back to square one. But once the kindling is burning strong, you add a larger stick, then another. Soon you're not feeding it twigs anymore, you're throwing on full-sized logs. The $50,000 is the log. By the time you're adding logs, the fire is so hot and so established that it will burn through almost anything you throw on it. It's self-sustaining. The effort required to add a log is minuscule compared to the effort it took to find and light that first piece of kindling. That's the whole journey in a nutshell. Okay, we've talked about the math and the mechanics, but the real transformation, the thing that makes the second $50,000 easier, is what happens inside your head. It's the psychological shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. And I know those terms get thrown around a lot. They sound a bit like corporate jargon, but the reality of it is very, very real. When you're in scarcity mode, your brain is chemically different. There's a famous study about sugarcane farmers in India. They're poor for most of the year, but once a year, after the harvest, they get a big lump sum of cash. Researchers found that their IQ scores were measurably lower in the weeks before the harvest, when they were struggling financially, than in the weeks after, when they had money. The cognitive load of poverty, the constant worry about rent, about food, about every little expense, takes up so much mental bandwidth that it literally lowers your ability to think clearly, to plan, to make good decisions. It's like your brain is running 50 browser tabs at once, and it's constantly crashing. When you finally build that $5,000 buffer, you start closing those tabs. You're not constantly running the what-if scenarios. What if I lose my job? What if the car breaks? You have an answer now. It's not a perfect answer, but it's an answer. I have $5,000. I can handle a few things. And just like that, your brain relaxes. It's not a permanent vacation from worry, but it's a massive reduction in the background noise. This mental clarity is the foundation for everything that comes next. With that noise gone, you can actually think about your future. You can think about your career, not just your next paycheck. You might think, if I spent $500 on a certification course, could I get a better job? When you have no money, that's a terrifying gamble. When you have a $5,000 cushion, it's a calculated risk. You can invest in yourself. You can start a small side business. You can take a class. You can network without the desperation of someone who needs a job tomorrow. You start to see opportunities instead of threats, and that is the single biggest accelerant to wealth creation there is. It's not about clipping coupons. It's about having the mental freedom to see the bigger picture and make moves that increase your income, not just save a few pennies. That $5,000 acts as a catalyst. It's the thing that allows you to transform from a person who is managed by their money into a person who manages their money. So, if you're in that first stage, that kindling stage, what are you supposed to do with this information? Is it just supposed to be depressing? No. The point is to understand the game you're playing so you can change the rules. You can't just use the same strategies that work for someone who's already at $50,000. You need a different playbook. For the first $5,000, forget about investment returns. Forget about asset allocation. Your only job, your singular mission, is to get that money in the bank. It's a brute force operation. It might mean working a second job for 6 months. It might mean selling stuff you don't need. It might mean living with roommates longer than you want to. It's not about optimizing, it's about accumulating. Your goal is purely defensive. You're building a fortress, not an army. And you have to redefine what progress looks like. Progress isn't your net worth going up by $1,000 in a month. That's a fantasy. Progress is having a month where your net worth doesn't go down because you successfully navigated a car repair without going into debt. That is a win. That is your shield getting a little bit stronger. You have to celebrate those small defensive victories because they are the foundation. I also think you have to be honest about the math of your life. If you're making $35,000 a year in a high-cost city, saving $5,000 is going to be a multi-year slog, and that's okay. But you also have to acknowledge that the fastest way to build that buffer might not be by pinching pennies, but by increasing your income. Can you get a raise? Can you find a better job? Can you drive for Uber on weekends?
For this first stage, your labor is your most valuable asset. The return on investment for an extra 10 hours of work a week is infinitely higher than the return on investment you'll get from the stock market on a $500 balance. Focus on the thing that moves the needle, getting more cash in the door. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. This stage is genuinely, objectively harder. If you're struggling, it's not because you're bad with money, it's because you're playing the game on hard mode. The system is designed to keep you in that leaky drain situation. Acknowledge the difficulty, celebrate the small wins, and keep pushing. Because on the other side of that $5,000 hill, the terrain changes. It gets easier. Not easy, but easier. So that's the paradox, isn't it? The first $5,000 is the hardest money you'll ever save, but it's also the most important. It's the tuition you pay to learn the game. It's the price of admission to a different financial reality. It buys you more than just stuff. It buys you time, it buys you mental space, and it buys you options. It's the difference between being a passenger in your own financial life and being the driver. When I finally got past that point, I remember looking back and being amazed at how different everything felt. The same paycheck that used to feel like it was barely enough now felt almost generous. Not because I had more money, but because the money I had wasn't constantly being threatened. The fear was gone. And in its place was this quiet, steady confidence, a feeling that, you know what, I can handle this. I can handle whatever comes next. And that feeling, that sense of quiet capability, is worth more than any dollar amount. It's what allows you to take the risks that lead to real wealth. It's what allows you to sleep soundly at night. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built. The climb to the first 5,000 is a steep, lonely, and frustrating slog through the mud. But you keep climbing because you know, or at least you hope, that the view from the top changes everything. And it does. It really does. The air gets clearer, the path gets wider, and you can finally see where you're going. My name is Alex, and I've spent way too much time thinking about this stuff. Thanks for letting me share it with you. I'll see you in the next one.